So on resistance, and the most, how would I say, most popular pointers in non-duality of allowing everything to be as it is. But the beauty of when it comes to KI, we actually start learning how practically we can bring that into our everyday life. Hold on, just give me just a second. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, resistance. Oh my goodness. So basically, this is the suchness of suffering, is resistance. And resistance can be translated in so many different ways, but I like to look at it as probably resistance and attachment, not the healthy attachment that we talk about in psychology and growing up and stuff like that, but attachment to certain good states and resistance to all the past is basically, we could describe the ego, because this is what it does. It's this constant actual energy that goes out into efforting of pushing things away that happened to us in the past unconsciously. So yeah, when we hear in non-duality, when we hear actually, okay, allow things as they are, it's wonderful pointers, but how do we really do that? And first and foremost, it's easy to understand when things are outside ourselves, like, okay, there's this situation that arising, this person said this person said that. There's a little bit more of, I wouldn't even say control, but there's just more obviousness to what's happening, and relaxing with that or continuously resisting and story making about that. But when it comes to actual inner resistance, that's a whole other story, because most of it is unconscious and we don't even see what's happening and why we get triggered about things as they are. Because actually in the past, something had happened that created a particular layer of protection that is constantly being reinforced unconsciously through trauma commands and repression commands that are unconsciously always running in the background. So it's kind of like tricky in that sense where, we come to non-dual circles and then we just want to do that in the best of our ability to allow things as they are. But it's not that simple and it's not that easy, and it's really actually starts driving us crazy, because we start efforting even on top of the efforting that is happening unconsciously. So what can we do about this, and how KI could be useful and helpful, is really skillfully learning how to surrender. Surrender is a big word in spirituality, but do we really know how? What does it really mean? So resistance is never external. Actually, it's always in an internal job. So when we start looking and when we, let's say, are triggered by something and some energies arise, maybe some negativity towards ourselves, or maybe there is something that resistance seems like outside of ourselves. Maybe it's just something someone said and there's just kind of this repulsion to it. And there's a conflict that is arising. So first and foremost, if we really check within ourselves and whatever is arising here, we can easily actually tap to if there's an unconscious resistance going on or not, with a simple question. And it would be, okay, whatever is here, either this self-negativity or this kind of trigger or energy or anger or anything else that is here in the body, or even the narrative in the mind, we can actually go right away. So this can stay here forever for the rest of my life. And then there's go, no, it can't. Or this situation or this person can be like that forever. No, they can't. So it's like, if we can make the unconscious resistance conscious within ourselves, then we have actual access what to work with. And meaning working with, I'm going to get to that, like that's the first part, if we need to make the unconscious resistance conscious. And then the second part is, okay, what do we do with that? And in the first part, when it actually comes to KI sessions, we can, sometimes it's really obvious. There's resistance to look, there's resistance to feel, there's actual absolute numbness in the session or confusion. It's really obviously here. So I'm not talking about the obvious resistance, but the obvious resistance I'm going to talk in the second part, like what we can do with it. It applies to both, to unconscious resistance and conscious resistance, and how we can deal with it. So the allowing everything to be as it is only is possible if we start even noticing that we're actually resisting something. So by asking that question, okay, this can stay here forever, I can notice, no, there's something here that is going to be saying, no, this has to go. So when I sit with that, no, this has to go, what I can do in the process, it's very simple. I can find, what this resistance, what is this protecting me from? This could be one question. What this resistance is trying to do, perhaps it's just protection, or what is this resistance is trying to tell me, or what this resistance is blocking me from actually feeling. So resistance, usually it's this layer, right? It's usually a layer of protection that underneath that hood, usually there's hurt, sorrow, grief, what have you, the more vulnerable emotions that are underneath. Resistance could be protection, anger could be protection. There's many different layers that could be protection. The need to hide. But I would say even all of these layers, like anger, the need to hide, the need to avoid, whatever it is, it's all just different flavors of resistance. So yeah, what we can do, okay, so kind of going in, I'll open it up. So going to, okay, how can we really then allow everything to be as it is in the most practical way? And what I found the most practical way to allow everything to be as it is was actually revealed to me, well, more deeply and more concretely and more kind of like as an established way of being is after the shift. Because what happened is, even though we can have this huge opening in Satori and knowing our true nature, what happens after, things close down. And to stay open, we need to start understanding the mechanisms behind the ego, or behind this collapsing on something, grasping onto something blissful, beautiful, or resisting and pushing away something uncomfortable. So what was revealed is the moment-to-moment constant surrendering to a point where it was kind of moment to moment until it became this constant openness. And this constant surrendering, what I mean by that is when, especially when we, uncover that unconscious resistance is here, maybe we verbalize it, it's obvious, it's in our system. What we can do with that, something that we want to push away, let's say it's like negative self-talk or anything that is internally happening, or negative talk about the other person, or just pointing out, or whatever it is, there's a suffering happening inside with resistance usually. So what we can do, we can just become as tender and as welcoming, even though maybe we don't want it here. Well, we can say, okay, thank you for arising. This is the most simple tool of KI. Thank you for arising. You can tell it, I hate you, but you can stay here as long as you like. The actual tool is, thank you for arising, I love you. You can stay as long as you like. But one of these two, thank you for arising, it's easy to say. Perhaps the second one, I love you, might not be easy to say. Or you can stay as long as you like, might not be easy to say at all. So find your version of acceptance. Sometimes when I guide clients and just we work on stuff, sometimes I would say, thank you for arising. I hate you, because they definitely don't want it there. And there is space for you here. You don't need to say, you can stay as long as you like. At least there is space for you here. Already right there, you actually created, not even created, the space is already there. You actually allowed your mind to soften and surrender more deeply to the actual welcoming space of our existence itself, the presence itself that is always here. Already welcoming, already allowing everything in our existence without discrimination. Whether it's the most ugliest of ourselves and disgusting of ourselves, internal energies, or whether it's the most blissful. So it's this attitude. So what I've learned is this attitude of constant surrendering my interpretation or my ideas about how the world should be, how I should be. And it's not just that simple. Some things are simple and we kind of make that decision. And some things we will have to work and have KI sessions to really learn how to soften our system or our guard, right? To be able to welcome resistance or to be able to welcome anything that is in our experience with open arms, really. And the actual, how would I say, like a landmark or something like really that marks the, something that really marks the inner maturing state of more and more awareness and more abiding, it's this absolute gentleness and tenderness with our inner experience. It's becoming the vast space to everything that is arising without pushing away, without grasping on, and with perhaps curiosity to know what is it doing here, whatever is here in my system. Because if it's here and if it feels uncomfortable, then it must have a story. It must have something that it needs to express. So this learning how to skillfully allow things as they are perhaps may take you some practice of softening, of inner softening, inner compassion. And only when we can accept everything within ourselves as it is, then it's a no-brainer to accept things as they are outside. Because the inside is going to reflect the outside. So it seems like we're resisting the world, but we're resisting ourselves. We're resisting feeling deep feelings. We're resisting the grief that is underneath, the hurt that is underneath, the guilt, the shame, so many things that are there. We're resisting to feel. We're resisting to actually even meet ourselves deeply, like meet ourselves fully, all parts of ourselves. Especially the most disgusting or shameful or guilty or ugly parts of ourselves. And only that then, when we really grow in that capacity, meaning who is it that is really growing in that capacity of surrender? The surrendering happening is when I make a choice whether I continue to perpetuate suffering, therefore I feed and fuel my narrative in the head about everything, or this glimpse or invitation comes through your curiosity and your own energy that is waking up, your own consciousness that is waking up. And it's this reminder, okay, I'm just gonna be, for this moment, just as much as it feels uncomfortable, the actual welcoming presence to everything that is arising, without grasping on to justifying myself, justifying my position. But if I'm just going to be the allowing space, first, if I could just be the observer, the watcher of it all. So if I could just be the observer, then maybe I can enter a little bit with kind of tenderness of whatever my experience is showing up as, whether it's discomfort, irritation, contraction, depression, whatever it is. Then I have the door to much more accessibility to be here in the present moment, because allowing things as they are is actually also an invitation and a doorway to the here and now. So again, just kind of recapping resistance. So we can only allow things as they are if we really find, and if we really start seeing that ego is simply efforting, ego is simply resisting the past or grasping on to the past. Future as such does not exist, and the past does not exist either. It only exists as just these words, pictures, sensations, quote unquote, memories that arise here and now. So what I'm resisting, the resistance and the grasping on or attachment, is towards these experiences and the projection of them, or the projection of not having them. So maybe, you know, if it's not, I'm not good enough, then the projection of the better me is in the future, and it's constantly doing that. So it's repressing, resisting the past, and it's constantly projecting a fixed idea that it never gonna arrive to in the future. So again, so meeting resistance, it's like really seeing the unconscious resistance constantly operating unconsciously, finding what it is, finding what it's here to do, protect us, what it is doing. And then when we did find a resistance within our system, maybe it's very obvious because you show up to a session and it's right there. I don't want to feel this, clear words. If you don't see it, then make it conscious through some inquiry questions, such as, you know, this can stay here forever. And then when you find a resistance, okay, resistance. It's kind of like this beautiful poem, The Guest House by Rumi. I'm not always come back to it. And it's like, okay, how can this resistance, even in the most tension, whatever it is, how can I make it this honorable guest at the table in my house, in this house of presence? So, hey, resistance, come here, sit at the table. Hey, anxiousness, come here, sit at the table. Hey, you know, the not good enough me, come here. So it's like this welcoming, and letting them all be here. And that's kind of the, I'd say, you know, the more and more awake state. It's like, okay, I can be the space to everything. And when the resistance gets welcomed, then it can actually relax. Maybe it holds a message for you. Maybe there's something that it really wants you to know. Maybe it's super already exhausted of protecting you, and there's this maturity of it relaxing finally. and you relaxing finally into going beyond needing to constantly resist your past, and therefore into the acceptance of everything as it was, and therefore everything as it is. Something like that. I'll welcome any question. Hi, Philippe, and a few new people. Nice to see you. Yeah, anything around allowing things as they are, resistance, or anything in general around KI, deprogramming, or our true nature.
Hey, I'll just say I found that really useful. I've thought about resistance a lot and tried to figure out what the nature of it is through my own experience, but just the way you spoke about that was really helpful. One thing in particular stood out for me, which was approaching your experience from this perspective of curiosity. In the past, I've heard people say that before, and in the past, I had understood it as if they were saying, be curious for curiosity's sake. Like, what is this I'm actually experiencing? And that resonates with me to some degree. But other times I'm like, no, I'm just not interested in exploring this. I don't like it. But you said maybe be curious about what its message is. And that's changed something for me, because most of the time I have this tendency to think that some things that are happening to me are kind of random, that they're just happening by chance. But I think that's a form of avoidance. I'm just choosing to not look into it. So yeah, that was really helpful. So thank you.
Awesome, Thomas. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's exactly that. Like when we come to KI, we just kind of start learning, wow, there's like a whole wealth of information inside our bodies, inside our somatic memories of things that happened. And there's a lot of the time, there's such messages, and I love, like, it's kind of like, I guess, maybe even my invention. And one of the inquiry questions that I love to ask, especially when the energy seems to leave, I would go and say, okay, now tap before it goes away. Like, what would be, its message to you, something that you need to know? Or what would be this wisdom that it wants to impart before it leaves? And there's usually always something we need to know. And it's quite fascinating because we carry the solution within ourselves. I mean, it's great to learn the tools, but everything, all the answers are within. It's quite a marvel, really. And the beauty of learning and getting curious, inquiry is curiosity. It's inquiring, it's questions. And what I've learned and what brought me to waking up and clearing up, and now a lot of the growing up process is still happening, clearing up is still happening, nothing ever stops. But what brought me is actually living with the question. So it's like, it's always asking life, and life has no choice but to respond. When I say life, it's source, God, universe, whatever, the intelligence, the absolute. So it has no choice. It has no choice but to come forth as an answer, whether it's a clue, whether it's a person, whether it's a teaching, whether it's a tool, whatever it is, whether it's just an aha and a realization, maybe whether it's a quiet moment of just stillness. But inquiry is definitely the key, and the curiosity and the perseverance are probably the main components that bring results.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's just led to an insight for me, which is that if your body can say that something's wrong, that you're not in agreement with life in any moment, then it already knows what's right.
Mhm.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah, there's the non-duality there.
Exactly.
It's right and it's wrong at the same time, just from different perspectives.
Hmm.
From the perspective of the separate self, there's something wrong, but from the perspective of everything, all included in one perspective, it's just okay as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, the intelligence of the body, if anything, we can learn through whether it's KI, whether we come to a really wellness-oriented, holistic care of the body, meaning good food, intermittent fasting, whatever it is, grounding. But what we've learned is really we're just tap into the intelligence that is here. There's like a compass, really. And this compass would really give us the alerts of either pain or contraction or blockages or triggers that is, hey, wake up, something needs to be looked at. So if we start listening to these cues, we start acknowledging and realizing, okay, something wants me to pay attention, something that needs to be inquired into, sit down with, looked into, so it's like there's this, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm not gonna go there. I'm like super nature freak, but it's a whole thing. There's the physical body itself. It's just a marvel, really, with everything that's happening. Like it's like very, very little human cells that's going on here, but there's so much going on here. And taking the energetic body, taking, there's something that we're just barely scratching the surface right now in science and neuroscience and real actual nutrition. And, the advancement of the tools such as KI. And it's really embodying and clearing up somatically. So we can be free and effortless, stop efforting ourselves into fixing ourselves. And that was like kind of the beauty and the realization. Waking up is not enough, because I was still efforting myself for a good years and kicking myself into the world, trying to make, presence alchemy, yes, was happening a while ago, but I was like just using, the mind to force myself into something. I could feel, yes, I could feel I was there. There was a vision, there was a feeling, but I was so forcing myself. Where when I came to just clear stuff up and start listening to my body and what it was telling me and all these traumas that were in the way of me actually being more effortless in the world and is stopping to trying to recreate my not good enough self or unlovable self into something lovable, but just canceling and removing the unlovable self and the resistance to that, the unlovable self, then clearing that out of the system, then everything is just effortless. I used to hate this because I was so afraid of these meetings. And the more people would show up, the more I was not able to speak, actually. And then when things get clear up and there was layers and layers of repressed shame that got cleared up, expression just shows up without efforting. It's just like, wow, this is just so simple. It's just simple how we fall into clearing up resistance and clearing up our grasping, this emptying basically the ego through KI or other different modalities, whatever works. Then we come into this flow of life that just effortlessly gives and effortlessly able to finally receive, because before, if we're not good enough, we can't even receive because it's too much. I can't be that. It's like, I need to be better, I need to be more intelligent in my speech and all these stories, right? So it's just that, it's that kind of an invitation. It's, yes, let's wake up, let's clear up, and let's grow up so we can be much more, how would I say, I guess, so we can just be the more refined vehicle for life to express itself. So I'll take another question, or Sharon, or anyone. Like, I want to hear your voices. You're also beautiful. Sarah, were you going to? No, I saw your hand.
Well, I was just flicking through to see who might answer you.
Okay, here.
Thank you.
Okay, what about resistance to pain? How to face it? Yeah, it's a tricky one. And so yeah, resistance to pain. So physical pain, yeah, it could be. It takes a great level of surrender, really. And I actually practiced it a little bit with the repression tools we have. So there is a tool, I'm not going to teach it here, but anyway, it's called intentional rapid fire, and it's finding the command of the resistance and firing it up, basically making the unconscious conscious. What I used it once, and it was just because I was so inspired by the tools, I wanted to practice them on anything. And I was working in that moment with actual client, and she's in wheelchair, and she had years and years of pain, a lot of physical pain, and we were working together, and you know, and it's easy to suggest from my perspective. It's interesting, some people probably mixed up the time coming in. So it's interesting to suggest, you know, pain is just a sensation to accept, but when you're actually dealing with pain, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And I could, you know, the only thing where I had the experience of that, and I can relate to with actual direct experience, because I didn't have too many, I'm like really blessed with like very sportive, like very agile body. So I don't have too much pain, but the only thing I can relate to her, and we kind of talked about it with her. And I'm going to get back to the tools that I used for repression with my headache, actually experimenting with that. It was through birth, through natural birth, did my last two births experiences. And when we remove the program that tells us pain is pain, and we really almost deconstruct that word, then when we actual experience, like in birth, what I experienced is intensity, yes, but I couldn't say that it was pain. It was like, wow. And it was surrendering in the face of that, and being able to relax your physical body in the face of intensity. That's quite a deep level of surrendering. But we need to deconstruct that pain, or like deprogram what pain means, because pain means a lot of things in our conditioning. But coming back to these tools and what I experimented, because, you know, as much as I can direct point her to, you know, it's just sensations that happen, you know, let's just kind of sit and feel little by little, it was not happening. So I was kind of almost blessed with COVID, and it was a lot of headaches, and I couldn't do anything, no matter like how many pills I took, it was just not happening. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna be with this pain in the way I teach people to be with pain, and I see what happens. So I started to see, okay, there was like, don't feel pain. That was the command. So don't feel pain, don't feel pain, don't feel pain. So I started to make it conscious, make it conscious, make it conscious, make it conscious, and like just fully make the resistance to pain as a conscious command in my awareness. And with that, I was able to just hold it. It was so palpable, like I could actually just almost hold it as an energy. So I just held it until like somatically something poof, shifted. And it means like I felt like there was another door where I could actually be with the pain without the resistance. And it was so interesting that by allowing the pain, my headache, which was there, intense pressure, was not even headache, it was just intense pressure, diminished by maybe 60%. And it was actually bearable. So it's quite fascinating, because resistance, why we have like birth, coming back to birth, why women have such terrible experiences, because we fear, and fear is resistance. So we resist what's happening, and therefore it's so much more painful. So we can dismantle the resistance to pain, or dismantle pain, just kind of deprogram the word pain and what it means. Then maybe we can meet the actual sensations as direct experience without resistance, and more welcoming. And when we meet it with more openness, it's actually much more softer, much more accessible. It can probably teach us a lot of things. Beautiful. Okay, let's meditate. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura Delia. I don't know, hopefully it answers a little bit your question. Reach out to me if you're really going through something, we can talk about it. Okay, cool. All right, let's see. So, let me just find a timer. Okay, so it's about 20 minutes. So whoever needs to switch, that kind of turn, get off earlier, just thanks for being here. And whoever wants to stay a little bit longer, I'll open up for a little bit of sharing at the end. Okay. So let's get comfortable. If you need to put socks or take off socks, as me, you can do that. And just get as comfortable as you can. If you need to recline, it's totally okay. If you need to lie down as well, it's also welcomed. It's just there's a bit more chances that you can fall asleep, which is also fine, because that's what you needed probably. So if you have somewhere to recline, you can recline, but keep your spine erect. Just stay straight as possible. And if you can find a comfortable position where you don't need to move too much for the next 20 minutes, that would be amazing. So again, for new people or people that haven't meditated with me, just a little reminder that so meditation, it's almost like shifting to a parallel state of consciousness that is always here, which is always restful. So how do we shift? The same way when we go to sleep, when we want to sleep, what we do, the ingredients are, we're going to stop all movement. We're going to try to relax the body to the best of our ability. The more relaxed, the better. We're going to try not to touch thought, otherwise we'll be thinking ourselves into insomnia and restlessness for the rest of the night. So these are the same ingredients, really. But another ingredient that stays here, it's the alertness. So we never give up awareness. We never surrender awareness. Maybe it can happen if sleepiness is here, but it's okay. So let's just start with just stopping for a moment and noticing what is settling. Noticing what is alive in you. Noticing the capacity to see with eyes closed, to hear with our ears, not necessarily listening for the outside noise, but on the inside, we can close our ears and there's the ability to hear still, to hear thoughts, to hear any inner sounds. frequencies. Basically, a translation of maybe a buzzing sound. There's the ability to feel on the inside, as if the whole space is alive. So let's take a few deep breaths, and all that is just to cue the physical body to let go and relax. So deep inhalation, expansion of the rib cage and filling out the belly and the lungs, and relaxing, letting go. And again, just inhaling, fully and completely, maybe a little pause, and just letting go. So if your mind is jumpy and busy and active, it's totally okay. It might be that the left side of your brain, which is kind of the connected to the fire side of the breathing, is active. So just come back to your breath, noticing the breath when you feel lost in thought. And if your right side of your brain is active, perhaps you're more contemplative, dreamy, maybe even sleepy. It's totally also okay. Again, if you're dozing off, come back to the breath. And what are we going to do? We're just going to check around if we find any resistance. So we're going to scan the body at your own time, at your own pace. Scan your body to see if there's any tension anywhere. Check in your face. Sometimes we don't notice, but there's a lot of tension we carry in the face. And if you don't find anything, check behind the eyelids and behind the eyes and in the jaw. And just relax them even deeper. Sometimes there's tension in the neck or the shoulders. So just go there and make more space there. Letting the shoulders fall, relax. There's no need to carry the backpack of to-do or someone else to be. Just for now, you can let it go. And check for any tension in the chest, in the spine, in the belly, in the pelvis, sometimes even in the legs. So when we find that point of tension, just again, it's basically your body somatically is still resisting something in the past, something that happened. So we're not trying to push it away. Remember, it's all about tenderness. We're not trying to change it. If anything, we're just welcoming it. Thank you for being here. I'll create more space for you to feel comfortable. So it's something with resistance to be watchful for, is resisting resistance. And something to get online with is welcoming resistance. So this particular meditation is going to be about, yes, allowing everything as it is, but it's also noticing all the energies or the voices that tell us or try to manipulate the experience into something else. So control is another form of resistance. It's another tactic of ego to project itself into something future. So what are we going to do? We're going to actually relax all efforting and all control. And what it takes is to really step into the background as just the watcher of things coming and going. So how are you resisting this present moment right now? Just get curious. Watch it. Are you trying to create a certain state? Are you trying to arrive at a deeper peace? Are you trying to not have thoughts? Just get curious. How am I resisting? Resistance takes us out of the present moment. So how is the ego, this egoing energy still active? And if you find it, it's not to be rigid about it. It's like, hey, effort, I see you. Come relax with me at the table. Come and sit. You're welcome here too. So again, if the mind looking for something to do, you can just ask it to be as tender as possible with everything that is arising. Not arriving at a calm state, welcome that. Thoughts are still active, you're lost in thought, welcome that. The softer we'll be with our experience and the less we manipulate awareness, the more we are here and now, present. And just get curious what happens if I allow everything to be as it is. What happens if I don't resist existence and everything that is arising? And everything that is falling away, even the most deep and calm state. it also comes and goes. And it's basically, where do you stand? Where do you take your position? Are you still entangled with the content and the trying and the efforting? Or are you watching it all coming and going? And it's almost like a portal could be, if we take sound, there are sounds outside in your environment, even the sound of my voice. There's inner sound. There's a lot happening, but that does not take away the actual quietude that is underneath the sound, meaning the container in which sound comes and goes. So we can either be fully merged with sound when we get lost in thought, or we can either take our position in the container that is always still, quiet, even amidst of sound. In other words, are you the sound or are you the hearing? And do you need to effort hearing, or is it just happening? So this pause and return to oneself is also an invitation to stop resisting who and what you are, by recognizing who and what you are truly. Which is not a thought, not a word, not an image. No matter how convincing the energy behind the image of yourself in the past or yourself right now. It's just an image. And you're aware of that, so you cannot be that. And then when we do, we take it to reality. I see an image of myself I don't like, and I want an image that I like. So I'm resisting. The resistance creates suffering. But if I realize all of this is an illusion, and I welcome the resistance, and I welcome the pictures, and I welcome the effort, the trying, then everything feels welcomed and can just get back home into nothing, meld back into being nothing in particular. So again, coming back to your body, being absolutely still. Relaxing the mind. It doesn't mean we're stopping thought, but it's just we're not entertaining that. You can even say, no, thank you. I'll get back to you soon. And come back to just watching your breath. Or come back to this curiosity of allowing things as they are without any expectation. But if anything, maybe with the curiosity of what happens if I do so. What happens if I relax control? What happens if I just allow everything to be? Not trying to get anywhere. We're going to remain in silence for the next 5 minutes or so. Don't forget your breath if you get lost. So we're slowly going to come back to noticing the breath. Just orient ourselves toward the physical body and the physical sensations. Of support, contact between the chair, wherever you're sitting. Just before we open our eyes, I want you to connect with the intention that brought you here. Just bring your awareness into the heart. Right there, just hold your intention. Just for a moment. What is it? What is this driver? What is this existential question? What is it that you're looking for? Just connect and just hold it dearly right there. Just like, thank you, heart, for giving me everything I need on my path to remembrance, to inner freedom, clarity. So just also have the intention of not just leaving it here with eyes closed, but just let it drip into your life every day, whatever you do. Moments of presence, moments of welcoming resistance, becoming softer with your inner experience. Whatever that is for you specifically. Make it your own, find your own way, and trust that. And we're gonna slowly just allow the body to stretch if it needs to, and move if it needs to, and taking your time for the transition. And if you want to keep your eyes closed for a while, you can do that. If you arrived at a quiet place, you can stay there. Whatever feels right. Otherwise, you can slowly come back. Oh my goodness. I love this chair yoga. Lovely. Welcome back. Landing into human existence. Anyone wants to share anything? Open mic. Don't be shy.
Hello.
Hi, Jesus.
Yeah, I have a kind of question about this meditation that we did. It was very helpful, the tips that you were given about invite everything that arises to be in that space, and even invite the feeling of trying to just relax. And what happened in this moment when I feel very relaxed, it is like I'm going into a kind of dream state where image from my, I think, subconscious just pop out, and it felt like I lost alertness, and suddenly I just remember myself that, oh, I'm meditating. So my question is, what do you do with that? Because sometimes it's really random thing. I don't find any meaning into that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. And yeah, it's like it takes time and focus. Sometimes we come to meditation and we feel like, okay, we're just gonna sit and things just gonna work out. But actually what happens for our mind to be more focused, and it takes a moment of maybe even just, I'm not suggesting that to you when I'm gonna go get to that, but it's just I'm starting from, let's say, beginner's mind. Sometimes it takes the focus on just watching the breath. Because our mind got so like out of the leash, it's just running free, basically running free. And kind of coming back to meditating, it doesn't mean that we need to stop our mind, but we need to re-own our ability to be focused. And we lost that ability over the years, or maybe we never had it. I mean, as children, we have it a lot, especially if we're not interfered by the adults. We can play with whatever we're interested in for hours, and really be focused. So this ability to focus will allow the ability to be here and not touched, but what is coming and going to happen. And not until this capacity slowly develops within you, it feels like we're going to be drawn again and again into random things, and we're going to be absorbed in random things over and over. And it's just, again, coming back, it's that this capacity of one-pointedness is not yet perhaps developed. And there's simple things that you can do to develop that. And you can just light a candle in the evening and just watch it. Just watch it. It's like a yogic technique, watch it. There are, other meditation types, which is form of concentration, like Patanjali. And anyway, I went through that path, and it was a form of focusing on a mantra or an inner sound. So there's an inner buzzing sound, and you're just focusing. So there's two things to that. The actual one-pointed focus can bring us to a spaciousness, to openness, if we stay there as beyond 5 minutes undisturbed. But it also just develops the capacity of the monkey mind not to disturb awareness all the time, not to hijack awareness all the time. And this capacity could be built like, okay, I'm getting into the shower, and just for 5 minutes, whether you want, you can just play a mantra and repeat it. You can do KI, you can do repression work, because it's like a mantra. It also keeps you focused. You can run the command, whatever it is. I'm avoiding to feel, avoid feeling, avoid feeling, avoid feeling. It also builds the muscle of one-pointedness. And so for actual samadhi to happen, we need to go, there's different stages of kind of capacity that we develop inwardly. And one is the focus, and the other one is allowing everything to be as it is. And then eventually one and the other kind of combined can create this spaciousness that we're all looking for kind of in meditation. So yeah, just find different ways that you can develop the capacity to just be more one-pointed with what is. And believe me, it's going to be not useful just in meditation, in so many other ways. And it's just going to be, when this is like concentration, is like mastering the mind. So mastering the mind is not telling the mind, oh, stop, I told you to shut up. This is just extra noise, right? But it is, okay, I'm going to pay attention to the breath right now, and you, mind, is not going to disturb me. You take your pause, I'll attend you later and be gentle, but I'm not going to pay attention. And you could only stay with that breath because you practice and develop that one-pointedness, that you know, Adyashanti, all his meditations are like that. But if you go to a retreat and then he talks to beginner mind, and he's going to tell them to, and he's going to instruct them to pay attention to the breath, pay attention to the breath, because it's here and now. And paying attention to the breath, it just develops your capacity to be right here and now, focused. So kind of like that. So it's kind of like just more like the tools what to do with that. But in the present moment, whatever it's arising, you know, come back and come back and come back again. So it's like, okay, I got lost in the image. Okay, I remember myself meditating. Okay, I'm here and now, listening to the sounds. Find a portal. It's either the breath or the sounds or any sensory perception that brings you back in the now. Okay, you got lost in the thought, come back. In the beginning, it's going to happen a lot, and then it's going to happen less and less and less. So you can kind of, that could be a moment kind of refocusing. But as I'm saying, if you just practice a little bit of one point in this, however it is, whether it's focusing on the mantra, whether it's doing your command, repression commands, or whether it's looking at a candle and just sitting there, just sitting there, just sitting there, then, you know, we can find it much easier to just be here and now. Yeah, kind of like a mind mastery.
Thank you so much, very helpful.
Awesome. Anyone else?
The sleep piece of it, I noticed that I get so relaxed that I will fall asleep even sitting up. And I have like a tracker that will like verify that I was asleep, because I can look at the analytics and it'll be like, yeah, you were sleeping, not meditating. And then also I notice sometimes when I'm doing self-facilitation KI, I fall asleep, and it almost feels like an avoidance of reality, if that makes sense. And you said something during the meditation about right brain, left brain, and getting sleepy. So maybe you can just speak to the sleep piece for a second.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so there's two things that can be happening. One is a form of resistance. So sleepiness, it's a coping mechanism as well. So some of us just learn that way to withdraw. And I observed it in my 13 years relationship, and his way of, anytime we would sit down and meditate or do something, it's just boom, switched off. And it was kind of interesting that I had to find other ways to engage with meditation, because it was just an energy that was alive in him. But the second part is that there is energetics to meditation. There is energetics to being balanced, left brain, right brain. And what happens, so there is our pranic body, our energy body, our breath body is switching every hour and a half between the left side and the right side. What happened in the society, we just worship so much the left side, which is the analytical brain, the problem-solving brain, the digestion is the fire. We gave it so much attention that unfortunately, like, our left was kind of neglected, which is the creativity, the contemplation, the more relaxed state, the sleepiness, and maybe even more like kind of, how do I say? Yeah, I guess a contemplative state would be a dreamy state. So what happens if in meditation, in actual yoga, yogis, I don't know, maybe sometimes you look at the pictures and there's like Shiva and he's sitting with this kind of like, it's like a crutch, but it's very short. It's like a small thing. So when he sits cross-legged and he puts it under his armpit, what it does, we can do it with a chair. So we can activate one brain or the other brain, and they're connected to the left nostril and right nostril. So what it does, the pressure on one side reactivates, changes the polarities. And what was happening in yoga and why in meditation, it was very important to activate both sides of the brain, so you won't be too much in the mind and you won't be too sleepy. So when both of them are active, So it's the Ida and the Pingala, it's the two nadis, the two main energy channels that go through all the centers that KI works with to unblock. I'm not gonna go to like, the chakras and the colors, that's not it, but there's energy centers, there's a developmental centers. So, and there's these energy channels that go through that. And when we wake up, mostly we realize what happens is we're mostly like in a balanced state of between, so the two brains are balanced, so it's not the left and it's not the right. It's kind of the non-dual. You enter the beyond the duality, which is the paranadi, the main channel of awareness or consciousness. It's an energetic channel, but that gets activated when we're balanced, the two brains are balanced. So the yogis used to invent these tools, so they would like, okay, if one is active, they will activate the other one, and they had a better chance at meditating more spaciously and being more present, not so agitated and activated. So there's a whole science around that. I mean, there's, I know there's some of the teachers for me in the Himalayan yoga tradition, which I was initiated into. So they were talking about even blocking the nostril that connects to hyperactivity, the left side of the brain, blocking, but the left side is connected to the right nostril and it's the other way around. So they would block the right nostril to age like a hyper, how do you say, hyper kids, like that can't sit and can't pay attention, attention deficit disorders kind of kids. And they had like an experiment in the ashram, so when they would block it, yeah, thank you. That they would get calm because they would access they will always function all day on the right side of the brain, which is more contemplative, more calm, more peaceful. So it's fascinating. It's a science. You probably can Google and find some things about it. I experienced it directly because meditating through concentration, and there's a form of different techniques, yogic techniques, to open up the two nostrils to be balanced, so you have a more capacity to deeper states of meditation or deeper states of just spaciousness, not being so caught up in the mind. And then the observation is, as I'm saying, when we are in the abiding state, there's an access like this to it. So when I sit down, like I immediately, both brains are open. And that just happens because when we slowly wake up, our energetic system also upgrades to hold a capacity to enter a deeper states of meditation or samadhi instantaneously and be much more balanced and more present, and therefore in the paranadi more than as opposed to left and right. So it's kind of like I'm giving you just a little brief of a huge depth of actual science behind this. And with the beauty is that the modern science is kind of catching up with the Eastern science and the yoga philosophy around this. So I would really recommend into looking. There's the Silva method, and the easy way to access through counting of 3 to 1. There is a way to reprogram your mind to enter an alpha state. An alpha state is the beginning state of the balanced brain. The theta state is a deeper state of that, but it's both starts with both active. So when we get into meditation, and we can check our nostrils, and that's kind of a fun thing to do throughout the day. You can check, sometimes stop and see what nostril is open for you throughout the day, and you'll see that they'll be changing. One will be completely unblocked, freely flowing, and the other one will be half blocked, and then they will change. So they usually change every hour and a half. So just get curious, because we unseen things, can kind of give us a little bit at least something that we can touch on. When spirituality, we can't touch too many things, but we can touch some science around how do we get balanced, how do we get more calm, how do we get, sleepy or agitated in meditation. and therefore learn ways to kind of control that. So I would, for you, like if anything, get curious on the Silva method. He invented a technique. It's a Western scientist, that kind of Western yogis, I call them. And he invented a technique that can get you there to that balanced brain in basically in 3 seconds. Yeah. It's really cool. Also in that brain state, you can manifest your reality really quickly because you're not in the ego state.
Thank you very much. That was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, cool, awesome. Yeah.
Hi.
Well,
I really appreciated the 2 words in the meditation, relax, control. And for me, that's been, I think, my pathway. That I've been so controlled in life, and not to get rid of the control, but just to relax it. It's almost like the effortlessness, or more of a balance in my life, so that they are complements to each other, and not one dominating the other. So anyway, just wanted to thank you for that.
awesome, thanks, Ralph. I'm glad it helped. Yeah, yeah, whatever, we find our own resonance, and it's beautiful sometimes. I have no idea what I'm saying, but it's like lovely how it plays out that way. So yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, so and this is just trust, right? Trust that you'll find the right pointers and the right words and the right tools in the right moment that's going to support you. It's just as long as we will remain curious. And that's really what got me to really freedom. It's just that, yes, there was somewhat suffering, not suffering over partying, like my body was exhausted, looking for fulfillment through yeah, I guess through drugs and alcohol and dancing. And because it's like, it removes, right? It's like we smoke and we take whatever ecstasy, and poof, everything, all deficiency stories, poof, collapse. And all of a sudden you so connect and you so can be yourself. And of course, it's just like, oh, I feel it. But then, then of course that's not the right path, and your body gets like, alert, alert, you're gonna kill yourself. So yeah, anyway, so that's just brought me to that curiosity. Okay, how do we, how can we be content? And how can we what is real even? What is real? What is real contentment? So there's always this curiosity that was kind of making the spiritual search alive. And I think that's very important. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, lovelies. I'm gonna let you all go. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was lovely to spend some time with you. Sorry it's kind of got extended, but bye.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your time.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. And sincerity, and it's awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, take good care. Simon, stay for a second. Bye-bye. Bye, Laura Delis. Oh, okay, she disappeared. Yeah. Bye. Thank you, Catherine. And thank you, Ambika. Yeah, a cute kitty. So it looks so lost. That kitty. It's cute. Gaia, also, thank you. Wow, so many new people. Thanks so much for coming.